Welcome back, everyone. I'm in Philly. This is my second trip to the salvage yard for a used climate controller for a Honda. It was $1,000 for a Honda climate control. $1,000. Yeah, so we chose the used route and see how that works out. Yeah, what a strange day today was. But that's the way it goes in the Twilight Zone. I wonder if I could put a sign up that says Twilight Zone. I'm gonna think about that one. This is about parts. There's a guy that has a gas station mechanic shop. He's Punjabi. I used to do a lot of work for him over the years. And then I guess he thought that he, knew as much as me, or he was hiring guys that knew as much as me. And then I didn't see him for a while, and then I would see him every once in a blue moon, like, hey, I'm in trouble, can you diagnose this for me? And then I was like getting aggravated over the years because I used to do that work and get paid for it and then do other work for him, and then he stopped, I guess, trying to do more stuff in-house or using his in-house mechanic. And then he just reappears after like 10 times I said, you used to spend money here, now you don't spend any money here, and you only come for free advice. My knowledge and experience isn't free. It comes at an expense. It comes at an expense, right? It costs me money to learn these lessons and educate myself. So I said to him over the years that he was just coming for me to diagnose his cars. I'm like, why don't you just send the car here so I can diagnose it for you? And then you could just repair it yourself. Just pay me for my time. So we're going to fast forward to 2025. I actually didn't see him in 2024, and I seen him spotty in 2023. And it was just getting annoying that he would just come for diagnostic tips and what he should do to fix a car. And I just tried to be nice because I am generally a nice guy until I feel like I'm being taken advantage. And then I gotta just bust out the platinum, laser sword and cut you. So I think at one point I just said, listen, stop coming here for information. If you can't support me, send me a job here and there to just keep the relationship going. I don't want to be your free diagnostic guy. And I think that's probably why I didn't see him in 24, and then in 25, I guess he realized how much more complex vehicles have become, and himself or his employees just don't have the experience and knowledge. So I seen him 4 times in the last month, and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I did this, I did that, I got the same codes, and blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, well, what sensors are you using? And he was just like, local parts store. I'm like, what local parts store? And he says one of them, because I'm having a gag order, I can't really say technically anything positive or negative about him, which is just really fucking ridiculous and stupid, right? Because you should just be able to educate the world that certain product lines work and certain product lines don't. Don't waste your time, don't waste your sweat, don't waste your brain power. Take it from the guys that have the experience who do this every day and say, certain oxygen sensors just don't work. Certain thermostats just don't work. Certain alternators just don't work. So he has one car that he says it's a Chevy Sonic. He says that he put O2 sensors in it and he still has the same codes. I'm like, tell me the codes. He said, I think it's heater circuits on both. And I said, okay. And he said, what sensors did you use? And I said, how many times I got to tell you stop using those sensors? Go to the dealership and pay the $10 or $20 more, if not the same price, believe it or not, people, and get exactly what the car calls for, because the resistance values and all the specifications are exact. And I said, okay. I said, so what brand did you use? He said, Bosch. I said, you can't use Bosch O2 sensors and GMs. Just can't do it. Can't even use Bosch O2 sensors and Hondas. He said, okay. I said, I want you to go to the dealership, buy 2 AC Delcos, not online, not from Amazon, not from eBay. Go right to the dealer parts counter and buy 2 sensors. the sensors in, let me know how you make out. So, okay, I'll do that when I get back. And he comes the next day, he says, I got another car. I'm like, what's up? I don't know what this code means. I said, okay, what kind of car is it? I said, you have your code reader on the car? Yeah. Did you clear the codes? Yeah. I go out to the car. It says bank 1, insufficient temp for closed loop. Insufficient temp for closed loop. Bank 1. He's like, what does that code mean? I said, that means that there's a wiring problem or you got a bad air fuel sensor. He's like, I don't want to have a comeback. I said, buy a Denso or go to Toyota or not Toyota. Sorry. Is it Lexus? Infinity? Lexus or Infinity or something like that. I said, put a Denso in it, go to the dealer and buy one. Oh, the customer wants to order one online. I said, do you want to come back? He said, no. I said, take control of your customers and say, I don't fix cars with online parts. I said, right now, are you making any money by driving 20 minutes down the road asking me for my professional advice and experience? He said, no. I said, is the customer going to pay you for the ride 20 minutes back? He said, no. He said, so you're going to be almost an hour into this car plus the time you've already spent for him to buy a part online that's going to be a knockoff or not the right part, and you're going to have the same problem. He said, I understand. So the next day he comes back with a Denso part. He says, can you please do the job? It's seized. No problem. Do the job, put it in the car. Perfect. Hey, how'd you make out on the other car? I said, the GM with the heater circuit codes. He said, no problems. I said, what did I tell you? So he comes today with a Land Rover, and there was another car in between that, and it's all diagnostic work. It used to be cats and flex pipes and patches and welds, and I guess he's doing all that stuff in the house now. And I said, haven't you learned your lesson yet? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, what are you doing working on a newer Land Rover? He said, the customer supplied a coolant temperature sensor, and I got the same code. I said, yeah. Where'd you get the coolant temperature sensor from? The customer bought it off of Amazon or eBay. I said, what color was the box? He said, I don't know. I said, well, if it doesn't have green and white Land Rover on it, you're wasting your time. He's saying, really? I said, how many times do I got to tell you this? I said, tell the customer that you don't do work like this. I said, because now you're in the same position. You're here losing money, and I'm diagnosing the car for free. So I got paid once, and I've diagnosed 3 or 4 cars already for free. So he's ahead of me on this. He's like, oh, serious? I said, yeah. I said, show me your code reader. Same code. Okay. I said, do you see this? It says ECT high resistance. I said, either the engine's low on coolant or the ECT's battery have a wiring problem. I said, it's not really suspect that the ECT has a wiring issue. I said, the suspect is you don't have an OEM part, and that's your problem. So then the other day, customer came in, said he put his battery in his car. He's still having charging problems. We scan it. He's got charging issues. 170,000 miles, original alternator. I'm like, all right, dude, well, we're just going to start with an alternator. And I said, I know these Fords are a nightmare, and I don't like using aftermarket reman parts because we only have nothing but problems. So the budget's tight. We do things the way we don't want to do it, and then we still have a problem. So then we call the customer and say, hey, man, listen, I know your budget's tight. We don't want to screw around with this. I'm already on my second time doing this job. Thank God it's not very labor intensive, and my guys know how to get in and out fast. But, you know, we had to put an OEM one in here and just move forward with the car. So then he's talking with Rachel, and he's saying, hey, you know, why can't you just get it online and do this and do that? And Rachel's like, we do not buy online parts. If we can't get it from a local parts store and we trust that product line or part, we buy it right from the dealership. And certain alternators, like I've had nothing but nightmares with, especially the Ford Explorer, which is basically the same engine as the F-150 and the 3.5 or the 3.7 non-turbo, that a used car dealer is using a parts store that I can't mention their name, that they're alternators. And I said, listen, dude, I've been down this road. We shouldn't do this. And he's like, oh, yeah, but the alternator's $200. The dealer's $500 and something. I said, yeah, I know. Been down this road. I said, let me just tell you this. Every time I got to take it out, it's 3 hours labor in and out. 3 alternators from said parts store. And I said, are you done yet? Did you learn your lesson? Go to the dealer, buy the OEM alternator, put it in, no more charge light. How about that? So the customer, you know, with the tight budget, we're like, listen, dude. He's like, I don't even think that's the problem with my car, and blah, 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 blah. And I said, do you honestly think that I'm going to give you your car back with the battery light on? No, we're not going to do that. So today he shows up to pick up his car, and we're busy with some nonsense work. And it's hot, trust me, my brain's melted today for many reasons. He walks up, comes in, pays for it, asks me if we changed the oil. And if you're watching, this is how the story goes anyway. I'm not busting on anyone, we're just talking. He goes out to his car, he starts it up, and then, like, I don't know, 5 minutes or 3 minutes later, he comes back in, he's like, yep, it's fixed. I said, did you honestly think I was going to give you your car back not fixed, dude? I told you I'm going to give you your car. My goal is to give you your car back fixed. And if something happens after it, that's just the way it is. My intentions aren't to try and mess with my customers. Like, hey, I fixed it, and if it didn't stay fixed, then I'll make sure that it stays fixed. But sometimes parts and things are beyond every great mechanic's abilities to keep things working. Let me put my windows down. So then he said, hey, he goes, like, did you change the oil? I'm like, no, you told us not to. You said you're going to do your own brakes and oil change. He's like, dude, for what it costs for me to buy the oil and the filter and do it in 100-degree temperatures, can you just do it for me? Like, yeah, dude, no problem. Right away, bring it right in. We had another customer who came in with a car that came in for exhaust, and, you know, had some good conversations and exchanges. He fixed his exhaust, and then we put his car outside, and he changed his mind and having us do his oil change. I mean, that a lot of mechanics don't like that in and out stuff, I'll tell you that. The car was already in the shop. We're tooled up and ready to go. And then you gotta go out there and say, can you bring the car back in for an oil change? Yeah, they almost like just want to walk off the job. So, try and use as much OEM parts as you can. You gotta know your product lines, what works. It's the way it goes. Oh, thanks for watching.